Hey everyone, welcome to the Chilling Hour, where the stories never let you sleep. My name is Emily Vargas. I'm 27 years old, and I swear to you, what I'm about to tell actually happened. It's been 3 years, but I still can't sleep right. Every time I close my eyes, I hear the radio static, the siren echoing in the distance, and I see that damn police car with its lights flickering in the dark. It started on a cold October night in Ashland County, Ohio. I was driving home from my late shift at the diner, around 2:30 a.m. The road was empty except for the fog that seemed to move on its own. My usual shortcut was a long, cracked stretch of county road surrounded by trees and cornfields. No houses, no gas stations, just miles of darkness. I had just passed the old Miller barn when I saw flashing lights in my rearview mirror, red and blue strobes cutting through the fog. My heart sank. I wasn't speeding. I wasn't drunk. I hadn't even changed lanes. Still, instinct told me to pull over. I stopped on the shoulder, rolled down my window, and waited. The car behind me was an old Crown Victoria, the kind they used years ago before the newer models came in. Its spotlight clicked on, blinding me in the mirror. I squinted, trying to see the officer's face, but he didn't get out right away. For a moment, all I could hear was my own breathing and the hum of my engine. Finally, the door opened. The man who stepped out was tall, thin, and wearing an old police uniform. The kind with the shiny brass buttons and a badge that looked more like a sheriff's star. His hat was low, shadowing most of his face, but his skin looked pale, almost gray under the light. He didn't say anything at first, just stood by the edge of my window, breathing slow. Then, in this flat, distant voice, he said, "Evening, ma'am. You know why I pulled you over tonight?" I shook my head. "No, officer. Was I speeding?" He tilted his head a little, as if trying to remember. "You didn't stop. Didn't stop when I called." I frowned. "Called? I didn't see you before now." He leaned closer, and that's when I noticed his badge. It said Deputy R. Holt, and below it, a county name I didn't recognize. It wasn't Ashland. It wasn't even close. Then I caught a whiff of something, not cologne or tobacco, but something foul, like wet soil and rot. "License and registration," he said quietly, his voice cracking on the words. I reached into my purse with shaking hands, trying not to make sudden movements. Something about him felt wrong. My stomach twisted. I handed him my license, but he didn't take it. He just looked down at my hand, then slowly reached out. His fingers brushed mine. They were ice cold. He looked at my name, then whispered, "Emily Vargas." I froze. I hadn't said my name. Then he smiled, or tried to. His lips barely moved, and I saw something dark on his teeth. Dried blood, maybe. He looked back toward his patrol car, then to me. "You need to come with me," he said. "We've had an incident." I swallowed. "What kind of incident?" He didn't answer, just pointed toward the fog. "Back there?" "Down the road." My hands were shaking now. "I'd rather not, officer. I should call the station." His expression changed instantly. The air turned colder. His voice dropped to a rasp. "Don't call." And then, like a switch, every light went out. My headlights, his lights, even the stars above seemed to vanish. It was total darkness. I could hear him breathing outside the car, slow and ragged. Then the police radio in his car crackled to life. A voice came through, static-laced and broken. "Unit 12, come in. Holt, do you copy? You're not supposed to be out there." He turned his head toward the sound, eyes wide, like he wasn't expecting it. I took the chance. I threw my car in drive and hit the gas. My tires screeched, dirt flying up as I sped off into the fog. For a few seconds, I thought I'd gotten away. But when I looked in the mirror, those red and blue lights were right behind me again, flickering erratically, like a dying heartbeat. No matter how fast I went, he stayed on me. Sometimes he'd vanish completely, then appear again just inches from my bumper. I turned onto Route 6, praying to see another car, a house, anything. And that's when I saw the police station lights ahead. I'd never been so relieved. I pulled in fast, slammed the brakes, and ran inside. There were 2 officers on duty, a young one at the front desk and an older one drinking coffee. I was shaking so hard I could barely speak. "There's an officer out there. He followed me. He said his name was Holt." The older cop's face went pale. "What did you just say?" "Deputy R. Holt," I cried. "He pulled me over on County Road 19. They exchanged a look. The younger officer picked up a radio. "County Road 19? That area's closed, sir. You said Holt?" The older one nodded slowly. "Holt's been dead for 23 years. I stared at him, thinking he was joking. What? He sighed, walked over to the bulletin board, and pulled down an old framed photo, a group of county deputies from the 1970s. He pointed to one face. That's Deputy Ray Holt. He died in 1982. Traffic stop gone wrong. A drunk driver hit his car and it went up in flames. They found his badge half a mile down the road. My knees went weak. No, I saw him. He was there. The young officer frowned. Ma'am, you said he told you to come with him? I nodded. Yes. Said there'd been an incident. The older cop looked at me grimly. He always says that. I didn't understand what he meant until he walked me outside to look. The fog was thick again, curling around the streetlights like smoke. Every few years, he said quietly, we get someone saying they were stopped by a patrol car that doesn't exist. Always an old Crown Vic, always near Miller Barn. I whispered, why? He looked down the road. That's where he died. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed in the station until sunrise, too afraid to even step outside. But here's where it gets worse. The next morning, when they went to check the dashcam footage on my car, the one the department installed after an increase in highway crimes, the video showed everything. Me pulling over, the flashing lights behind me, the outline of a man stepping out of the cruiser. But when he approached my window, the frame glitched. His figure turned into static, like the camera couldn't process him. Then, for just 1 second it cleared, and there he was. Pale face, burnt skin, eyes hollow, uniform half melted, smoke rising from his shoulders, and his mouth moved, even though there was no sound. The tech guy slowed the footage down, frame by frame, until we could read his lips. He said, "You didn't stop for me before." I still don't know what he meant. Maybe he mistook me for someone else. Maybe he was reliving that night over and over again, stuck between the living and the dead. But I wasn't the only one. 2 weeks later, a truck driver was found dead on that same stretch of road. His rig had crashed into a ditch. Witnesses said they saw police lights flashing right before the accident, but no units were reported in the area. When they pulled his dash cam, they found nothing except faint audio right before the crash. "Step out of the vehicle, sir." After that, the county permanently closed that section of the road. They said it was for maintenance, but everyone in town knew the truth. People still see the lights in the fog, and sometimes if you tune your radio just right, you'll hear the old police frequency, the one they retired decades ago, still sending out one transmission. Unit 12? Come in? Holt? Do you copy? Now, whenever I drive at night, I never stop for flashing lights until I see a second car or a well-lit area. Because sometimes the past doesn't rest. Sometimes it pulls you over. Story the end.
Story number 2.
My name is Daniel Brooks. I'm 31 years old, and I used to work as a deputy sheriff in a small town in Missouri. What I'm about to tell you is the reason I left law enforcement for good. People always talk about the dangers of the job, shootouts, drug busts, domestic calls gone wrong. But nothing prepares you for the kind of thing that doesn't belong in this world. It started in late October 2012. We'd been getting reports about strange noises coming from the old county jail, our department's first facility, built back in 1906. It hadn't been used in over 30 years. The new station was built down the road, but the old brick building still stood there like a scar from the past. Locals said it was haunted. Kids dared each other to break in at night. I never believed in that kind of crap, but that changed one night during my patrol. It was around 2:30 a.m. when dispatch called in a 911 report about screaming coming from the old jail. A woman's voice. The caller was a trucker who'd stopped at the gas station across the road. I was the closest unit, so I rolled out alone. I remember the sky was black as pitch, clouds hiding the moon. The wind howled down Main Street like it had a voice. When I pulled up to the old jail, I noticed the front gate was open. That was strange. It had always been padlocked. I got out of the cruiser, flashlight in one hand, my other resting on my sidearm. The building loomed ahead, brick crumbling, windows boarded up, roof sagging like it was tired of standing. The faint sound of metal clinking echoed from inside. "County Sheriff's Department," I called out. "If anyone's in there, you're trespassing. Make yourself known." Silence. Then, just as I stepped through the doorway, I heard it, the unmistakable sound of a woman sobbing. Faint, coming from downstairs. I followed the noise, my boots echoing on the cracked floorboards. The air was cold, too cold for October. My flashlight beam cut through the darkness, catching glimpses of old cells, rusted bars, and graffiti scrawled along the walls. The smell of mildew mixed with something metallic. Blood, maybe. The sobbing grew louder as I reached the basement stairs. My radio crackled, but all I heard was static. "Dispatch, this is Unit 7. I'm at the old jail. Possible trespasser inside. Radio check?" Nothing. I tried again, but the line stayed dead. I descended the stairs slowly, the wood creaking under my weight. The basement was worse. Dark, damp, and freezing. Water dripped from the ceiling into puddles that reflected my light. The crying came from the far end, near the solitary cells. When I reached the last cell, I froze. There was a woman inside. She was sitting on the floor in the corner, knees drawn to her chest, wearing what looked like a tattered white dress. Her hair was long, dark, and matted with grime. "Ma'am," I said cautiously, "are you hurt?" She didn't answer, just kept crying softly. I moved closer, raising the flashlight to her face, and that's when she stopped. Slowly, her head turned toward me, and I swear to God, her eyes were completely black. No whites, no pupils, just empty darkness. I stumbled back, hand going to my gun. "Stay right there," I ordered, but she just tilted her head like a curious animal. Her mouth twitched into this small, unnatural smile, and I heard a whisper. My name. Daniel. That voice. It was like hearing someone speak underwater, distorted and distant. My chest tightened. I'd never told her my name. Then the lights went out. My flashlight flickered and died, plunging me into blackness. I could hear her moving. Footsteps. Wet, dragging steps coming toward me. I drew my gun and fired twice, the shots deafening in the small space. When my flashlight flickered back on, the cell was empty. No woman. No blood. Just cold air and the smell of gunpowder. I ran up the stairs, my heart pounding so hard I could barely breathe. As soon as I reached the top, my radio came alive again. Dispatch calling for a status check. I tried to answer, but all I could say was, "I need backup. Now." 2 other deputies arrived within 10 minutes. They found me outside, shaking, pale as a ghost. We searched the entire building, no sign of anyone. But here's where it gets strange. When they checked the basement, there were 2 shell casings on the floor for my weapon, and 1 single wet footprint that wasn't mine. Barefoot. Small. I filed my report, but the sheriff told me to keep it quiet. Said he didn't want ghost stories circulating. But a week later, things got worse. We started getting more 911 calls. People hearing sirens blaring from the direction of the old jail, even though no patrol cars were there. Some residents swore they saw an old police cruiser parked outside the building, engine running, with a figure sitting inside wearing an outdated uniform from the 1950s. When officers went to check, the car was gone. Then Officer Miller went missing. He'd gone to follow up on another complaint about strange noises. When he didn't respond to radio calls, a team went out looking. They found his cruiser parked behind the jail, headlights still on, driver's door open. His radio was busted, and his body cam. God, I'll never forget what was on that footage. It showed him walking through the same halls I had. At first, everything seemed fine. Then the audio picked up whispering, faint, like voices overlapping, dozens of them. Some begging, some laughing. Then he reached the basement. The camera tilted slightly, as if he'd seen something. And in that last frame, before the video cut to static, I could see a figure in white standing in the cell. Just standing there, staring at him. They found Miller's body 2 days later in that same cell. His eyes were gone. No signs of struggle, no wounds. Just gone. After that, the department locked up the old jail for good. The county ordered it condemned, but for some reason, the demolition never happened. Every contractor that came out to survey the site quit within hours. Said they felt watched. I couldn't sleep. Every night, I'd wake to the sound of static, or faint crying, or whispers coming from my police scanner, even when it was off. One night, I woke up to the sound of a woman's voice through the speaker. "Help me, Daniel." I unplugged the damn thing, but the voice kept coming, faint and desperate. My wife found me sitting in the dark, shaking, holding my service pistol. That's when I knew I had to leave. I quit the force a month later, packed up and moved 3 states away. I tried to forget, but you can't really forget something like that. 3 years later, I got a call from an old partner, Jim. He'd stayed on the job. When I answered, he said, "You won't believe this, but the old jail burned down last night. Total loss." Good, I said, thinking maybe that would end it. But Jim hesitated. That's the thing. We didn't start the fire. Nobody did. There's no electrical line, no lightning strike. And Daniel? What? I asked. He took a deep breath. The fire started in the basement. The investigators found footprints in the ash. Small ones, barefoot. I hung up, didn't sleep for 2 nights. But the worst part came a week later. I was in my new house, sitting alone in my office, when I heard a faint knock at the front door. I opened it, but no one was there, just a small puddle on the porch. I looked down, and my heart stopped. There was a single wet footprint leading away. Barefoot, small, and childlike. I slammed the door, locked it, and sat there all night with my gun in hand, waiting for something else to happen. Nothing did. But the air in the room felt heavy, charged, and I could swear I heard faint crying again, coming from the police scanner I'd thrown out months ago. I don't know what that thing was, or who that woman had been. Some say the old jail used to house women accused of witchcraft back in the early 1900s, before the records burned in a flood. Others think it's the spirit of one of the inmates who was beaten to death by corrupt deputies in the 1950s. All I know is, something evil lived in that building, and it wanted to be remembered. Every now and then, I'll get a call from an unknown number. When I answer, there's only static, and faintly, under it, the sound of someone whispering my name. I moved again last year. Don't tell anyone where I live now. I keep my doors locked, lights on, and I don't listen to scanners or radios anymore. But sometimes, in the dead of night, I still hear a woman's voice, soft, broken, and distant, calling from somewhere I can't see. Help me, Daniel. And every time I hear it, I remember that dark basement, that cell, and those black eyes staring right through me. Story the end.
Story number 3.
My name is David Miller. I'm 31 years old, and I'm going to tell you something that's been haunting me for the last 6 years. I was a deputy for the Hawthorne County Sheriff's Department, a quiet rural patch of upstate New York where nothing ever seemed to happen, until that night. People call it the police car haunting, but they have no idea what it really was. It was November 14th, 2019, a foggy Thursday night. I was on patrol alone in Unit 47, a 2012 Ford Crown Victoria, one of the last old models still in service. I loved that car. It had history. It was steady, dependable, or so I thought. The radio was quiet that night, only static now and then. I was driving down Route 33, a long, empty stretch of forest road. No houses, no streetlights, just my headlights cutting through the mist. Around 1:15 a.m., dispatch called in. Open quote. Unit 47, check out a vehicle abandoned on Old Quarry Road. Caller reports engine running, but no one inside. Close quote. I acknowledged and turned down Old Quarry Road, a dirt path that hadn't seen maintenance in decades. The fog was thicker there, almost like smoke. My spotlight caught the shape of a dark sedan sitting at the side of the road. Its engine was idling, exhaust fog curling upward. I parked behind it, radioed in my position, and stepped out. The cold hit me hard. I remember the smell, wet earth, and something metallic like old blood. I approached the car, flashlight raised. The driver's door was open. The keys were still in the ignition. Sheriff's Department, I called out. Anyone here? No answer. I checked inside. No wallet, no phone, no blood, nothing. Just a faint humming sound coming from the dashboard, like the radio was picking up interference. The sound made my skin crawl. I decided to run the plates. I got back into my cruiser, grabbed the radio mic, and started reading the numbers when I noticed the interior lights flicker. The computer screen on my dash glitched, flashing between lines of text before freezing completely. Then the radio cut out. Total silence. And then I heard breathing. It wasn't mine. Slow, shallow, coming from the back seat. I froze. I turned slowly, shining my flashlight through the cage divider. The beam hit nothing but empty seats. I told myself I was imagining it, probably just the wind through the vents. But then I saw movement in the rearview mirror. Someone or something was sitting behind me. I spun around, heart pounding, but the back seat was empty again. I jumped out of the car, breathing hard. The forest around me was dead silent. Even the crickets had stopped. When I got the courage to look again, the cruiser's headlights began flickering, on and off, on and off. Then the siren wailed out of nowhere, screaming into the fog. I ran toward the car, trying to shut it off, but before I could touch the handle, the engine roared on its own. The car shifted into reverse. I swear on my life, I didn't touch a thing. It rolled back slowly, the driver's seat completely empty, then stopped dead like it hit an invisible wall. The siren died. The lights went dark. For a few seconds, there was nothing. Just the fog, the soft hum of the engine idling. And then my radio came back on, crackling, distorted, but clear enough for me to make out a voice. Open quote, Unit 47, where's your backup? Close quote. It wasn't dispatch. The voice was flat, emotionless. It sounded like a recording being played backward, warped and unnatural. Who is this? I said, trying to steady my voice. Identify yourself. Open quote, you shouldn't have stopped. Close quote. The voice distorted again, and I swear it started to laugh, low, rasping inhuman laughter that faded into static. At that moment, the abandoned sedan's headlights flared to life. Inside, sitting behind the wheel, was a man, pale face, blood down his chin, eyes completely black. He smiled at me through the windshield. I stumbled backward, drawing my gun, but when I blinked, he was gone. The car was empty again. I called for backup, nothing but static. My phone was dead too. I tried to get into my cruiser to leave, but the locks had engaged. The key wouldn't turn. I pounded the steering wheel, shouting, "Come on!" Then the radio crackled again. Open quote, Unit 47, responding code 3, officer down. Close quote. That made my blood run cold. Officer down? Who were they talking about? Then, through the fog ahead, I saw flashing red and blue lights. Another patrol car was approaching. Relief flooded me until I realized the siren didn't sound right. It was off-pitch, distorted, like it was echoing from underwater. The cruiser stopped right behind me. Its engine idled. The door creaked open. "Hey!" I shouted. "Over here!" But no one stepped out. I approached slowly, weapon drawn. The inside light flicked on, and I froze. It was my face in the driver's seat. Same uniform, same name tag, same everything. But this version of me looked wrong. His eyes were milky white, and his lips were cracked like old leather. He turned his head toward me with a slow, unnatural movement and smiled. Open quote, "You shouldn't have come back here, David," he whispered. Close quote. Then he reached for the radio, brought it to his mouth, and said, open quote, Unit 47, officer down. Close quote. I fired. 3 rounds straight through the windshield. The sound echoed through the trees. When the glass cleared, the seat was empty. The car was gone. No tire tracks, no sound, just gone. I don't remember how I got back to town. I must have driven autopilot. My hands were shaking so bad, I could barely keep the wheel straight. When I pulled into the station lot, everyone stared at me like they'd seen a ghost. "Where the hell have you been?" Sergeant Doyle asked. "We've been calling you for hours." Hours? I looked at my watch. It was 4:42 a.m. I'd been gone 3 hours. "Your car," he said quietly, pointing outside. I followed his gaze and felt my stomach drop. The cruiser they'd towed back wasn't mine. The number on the side wasn't Unit 47. It was Unit 23, a car that had been retired 10 years earlier after an officer died in it. Officer Thomas Reed. I remembered the story. Reed had responded to a call on Old Quarry Road back in 2009. He never made it back. When they found his car, the engine was still running, lights flashing, door open, but no sign of Reed. They said it was a carjacking gone wrong. They said his body was never found. The car I'd driven that night, the one assigned to me, was that same cruiser. Unit 23 had been refurbished and renumbered. I went home that morning, called in sick for the next few days. But the nightmares didn't stop. I'd wake up in the middle of the night to the sound of a police radio crackling from my living room. Once, I walked downstairs and found my TV flickering with the same static, the same voice whispering, open quote, Unit 47, officer down, close quote. 2 weeks later, the department decommissioned that cruiser for good. They said the wiring was faulty, the radio system corrupted. They sold it at auction. But that wasn't the end. A month after that, a young deputy named Evan Clark responded to a call in the same area, Old Quarry Road. He was driving Unit 47, the same car after reissue. He never came back. They found his dashcam footage. It was only 27 seconds long. The video showed Evan sitting in the car, breathing hard, looking over his shoulder. Then the screen flickered, and for one brief moment, you could see someone in the back seat. A pale man with black eyes and blood on his chin. The final frame of the video showed Evan's face twisted in terror, and the radio repeating, open quote, Unit 47, officer down, close quote. After that, I resigned. I couldn't do it anymore. I left Hawthorne County, tried to start over in Maine. But sometimes, late at night, I still hear it. That low hum, that distorted voice echoing through the dark. One time last winter, I was driving home and saw flashing lights in my rearview mirror. A police cruiser behind me. The siren was faint but familiar. When I pulled over, the car stopped behind me. The lights went out. No one got out. I waited a full minute, staring into the mirror. Then I saw it. The number on the door. Unit 47. I drove away as fast as I could. I don't think it was a real officer. I don't think it was ever human. I think that whatever happened on Old Quarry Road left something behind. Something that lives inside that cruiser, feeding on fear, calling out to anyone who listens. They can scrap it, repaint it, sell it. But it always comes back. If you ever see a black and white Crown Vic with faded paint, number 47 on the side, and the engine idling with no one inside, don't stop. No matter what you hear, no matter who calls your name, because once you hear that voice say open quote, Unit 47, officer down, close quote, you'll never get away. Story. The end.